so I was like, "Oh, great." I did not know that all the water ran down there. And I was like, "Well, this is already here, so we're gonna use this." I have no idea why that was put there because my chickens, they were just dying left and right of disease from this runoff water, and it would stand, it would never drain, it would never dry. It was just muddy and disgusting. And I finally was like, "We need to move the chickens or we're not gonna have any left. They're just
Mm-hmm.
dying." And during that time, I'm like, "Oh, it must be parasites." Because it took me a little bit to be like, "This is just the mud and the standing water and the bacteria that's building up." Because it is also very humid here and disgustingly hot. And um, so I'm like, I need to treat them for parasites. I need to treat them. They're like coughing. They always seem to have colds. So I'm like
Weird.
researching and doing everything to keep these birds alive.
This is the Farm Hop Life podcast. I'm Matt DeRozier. Tonight, my guest is Sophia Neeld of Honey Grove Homestead in Central Georgia. She's got a great Instagram and YouTube to show off all her homesteading experiences, the good and the bad, which I like. So, how are you doing tonight, Sophia?
I'm doing okay. Yeah.
Despite your injuries that we were just,
Despite
just
my
discussing?
injury, I'm here.
Good. Um, so let's just jump right in on you said that you've been homesteading for 12 years, or is it more now?
So, no, it's about 12 years. But I've only had like more than a half of an acre of property for just since we moved to Georgia. I have just homesteaded in place with what we have. My husband's job has moved us around over the years. We're here for a while now, finally, but it's taken years to get to this point. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Where were you? Where did you guys start out, if you don't mind me asking?
So, start out homesteading?
Sure.
Okay. Well, okay. So originally I'm from Oregon.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and then we moved to Indiana. And so you could say that my homesteading journey actually started like the very like beginning baby ideas of homesteading started in Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And that
doing
was
what?
2009. 2009. So, well, the things that started it happened to be, my kids and poor health, actually.
Hmm.
And so it started out with a little tiny garden, just the tiniest little bed of garden because I was like, I'm growing all my food. And and I had no experience gardening. I didn't grow up with my parents gardening or I didn't grow up on a farm. I did have a friend, however, who did, and I spent a lot of time with her, and I would help her, feed calves and take care of the pigs and feed the horses. And
Was
that
that
was
back in
even,
Oregon?
yeah. So
Okay.
that she would say, "You're gonna have to drive while I throw the hay out the back of the truck," and I did not know how to drive. And I was like, "Okay, well," and it was also a stick shift, so she'd put everything like she'd put the truck in gear, and she'd say, "Okay, just put your foot on the gas just a little bit, and I'll run and I'll jump in the back and just keep it in that gear." I was like, "Okay," because I don't know any other gears. So, and she would feed the horses while I drove around their property. And so that was my only experience with any kind of farming. And then we moved away from that part of Oregon. So then it was, another 15, 16 years before that, ever crossed my mind.
Sure. I
Yeah.
think little childhood experiences like that do affect you,
Hmm.
whether you're aware of it or not. And you're actually not the first guest I've had that had their kind of homestead slash farm starting like experience in Oregon. And so
Oh, interesting. Oregon's
I
a good
think
place for that.
it is, well, at least it was
It
back
was.
Probably 80s. I think is what my other guest when he was growing up. Uh,
Yeah.
so, anyways, so yeah, Oregon was a good spot to start.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. I wasn't going to say anything.
Oh, okay. So I hope I'm not prying too much, but you mentioned health in when
Mhm.
you were in Indiana. Anything serious, or was just like we all feel terrible and we need to eat better?
Well, actually, it was Christmas Eve, 2009, and I asked my oldest daughter if she wanted to go to Walmart with me so we could pick up some stocking stuffers, just, last minute things, last
Mm-hmm.
minute Christmas dinner things. And she was like, "Yeah, sure." And it was like late morning. Um, and we were walking through Walmart, just, putting stuff in the cart. And she said, "Mom, I don't feel good. I need to go sit down." I said, "Okay," but she took a few steps and she passed out. And 911 came, and the hospital did a bunch of testing, and they were like, "We're not really seeing anything." Her blood sugar was a little low, but that was it. And she said, "Well, I didn't eat breakfast." Well, she was also getting really bad migraines. And so for the next year, we were like having her tested and taking her to specialists. And finally, 1 year after that incident, she had a specialist, um, trying to figure out her migraines and what was causing them. And she said, "Well, has she been to the hospital at all?" This was a new specialist. And I said, "Yeah, a year ago, she passed out in Walmart." And I told her what happened. And she said, "Well, I want those lab reports." And I said, "Okay, but they said there wasn't anything, wrong." And so she said, "That's fine. I'll just get them. I just want to look over them." So she called us that same day and was like, "Did they tell you that that your daughter is extremely anemic?" And I said, "No, they said she was fine." And she said, "Well, it's not even just mild, it's just really bad. And she needs to get on medication. She needs to get on iron." Um, and so we did that, but that was the point that I was like, my daughter's diet, I mean, she is a teenager. Teenager diets are garbage a lot of times, especially if
Oh,
you
definitely.
yeah, if you weren't raised with, like a big giant garden and more healthy foods. I mean, I was raised on bologna and American cheese. So my kids,
Solid,
yeah.
solid diet.
So my kids were not much better. They didn't like bologna and American cheese. They did have some whole
Dang.
foods, but we also did have, a lot of processed foods because I have 6 kids, and it was like I was like, I've got to survive 6 kids more than anything else. And it didn't
Right.
cross my mind how it would affect their health and stuff. So I started doing a lot of research and just, going down all these rabbit holes. And that was the very, very beginning of that, like, seed that had been planted in my mind. And I started looking into homesteading and growing my own food. And I told my husband, we need to start growing, our own food, at least as much as we can on the property that we have.
Yeah.
I need to start going to farmers markets. I need to do better for the kids, and, and for us, so that, we can be as healthy as we can and do our part so that we can, be around a long time. So, and so my husband and I built just the tiniest little garden bed, and we were so proud of it. Well, I was proud of it. I don't he's sitting over here. He probably was like, "Whatever. We'll just do it." And, I planted those cucumbers. I got a pack of cucumber seeds, a pack of tomato seeds, never growing anything, didn't know anything, and didn't get much. But what I did get, I was like, I can do this with some more knowledge. I need to get books. I need to start studying. I can do this. And then we ended up moving to Washington State, uh, before the second gardening season with that garden bed. And yeah, that's how it started. And it was just kind of a health crisis that set
Sure.
that little wheel in motion.
There usually is
Yeah.
something like people are just like, yeah, I'd like to eat healthier, but I don't know. And then something happens. Like it was kind of like stirring around in their head before, and then something
Yeah.
happens, and they're like, all in. This is
Yeah.
the moment that
Yeah, well, and
kind of
we were
changes.
lucky with Indiana because where we were at, we were in Bloomington, Indiana, and that's like they had an amazing farmers market, a lot of little farms even near where we lived on the back roads that would sell eggs and produce for really
Yeah.
cheap. And so I was able to start getting more stuff. And I think what one of the first healthy meals I made was like a kale potato soup. It was disgusting. And my kids hated it and complained, but I was like, okay, but I'm going to keep trying. I'll just get better. So
Yeah, just put some lemon juice on it or something.
I know. Like, here's the salt, guys.
Yeah, salt on salad.
Yep.
Um, so you've been at your Georgia property for only 2 years. What's
Yep.
it? How have you found the Georgia homesteading community to be?
So I'm just now starting to find it. When we first moved here, I mean, it was COVID had just started. So it was really hard to meet people. And um then, I'm always looking online for things. And I'm slowly starting to find and on Instagram, I'm starting to find there's like Homesteaders of Georgia, the Instagram uh
Like account or
yeah,
hashtag or
Instagram
okay.
account. There's just a lot of little ones like that. And so it was really Instagram that I started finding more homesteaders. But here in the little town I live in, um, I have found there's some uh, she's like I don't know why like I don't know what she does with her animals. she's but she has a bunch of animals, and I found her through somebody else that was like, hey, just someone in my church community that's like, hey, I think you and this lady would get along, and she has a farm. And so I took my granddaughters there, and we've clicked really well. And she started telling me, yeah, there's this farm a little bit north of here that you should go to, and we've gone there. And so it's just been really slow
Nice.
going. But yeah, it's usually you just need that one, like, other farm friend that has lived in a place at least a little bit longer than you. And her and her husband have only been here since 2019. But because of her, I, started being able to find, I guess, my tribe.
Right. Once you find
Yeah,
the one, the floodgates kind of open to all the others.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it's kind of like the same way for us here. Like, we got some Cornish cross to stock up the freezer, and I found out like the Montana Growers Poultry Co-op or whatever that you can get discount on feed and rent processing equipment. And I got a hold of the guy that runs it in my area, and we just got to talking, and he's been like a huge connection point for me
yeah,
locally. So
that's
it's been
great.
cool. Yeah. So
Yeah, even
uh
our local Ace Hardware, there's some really great people that work there. And
really
so,
something good
yeah, there
happened at Ace Hardware.
is. And I love Ace Hardware now. The the guy that works in the nursery, he is great. He's so full of information. Like, I can ask him anything about any, plant or whatever, and he'll tell me. So that's been great. And yeah.
Sounds more helpful than my Ace Hardware in my town.
Yeah. Yeah, some are helpful and some aren't. I built a drain by myself. Um, and I had to go to Ace to go get the parts, and
Mm-hmm.
without the guy that was there to help me, I would not have figured that out at all. And he just walked me through it. He told me everything to do. And I do, like, we live uh in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a very rural area of Georgia that we live in. And I think that is part of it. You just everybody wants to help everybody. We're all kind of doing the same thing.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
good to know. Um, so I noticed you got a couple different things on your property. So you have, do you still have your potbelly pig?
We don't.
Oh, dang. So you
No.
had a potbelly pig.
We
What
had
happened
one.
there?
So when we got our potbelly pig, we did not live here. Had we lived here, we would still have him. But
Oh,
we lived on a half acre, and he wanted to be a house pig.
a
And it
house
didn't
pig.
matter what we did. He thought he was one of our dogs, and he wanted to be a house pig, and he was so big, and our property was not really set up or conducive to having a potbelly pig.
That's
and
hilarious.
and we tried so hard to keep him, and we ended up just taking him to a farm, and he's living his best little potbelly pig life. We do plan on adding some cooney pigs to this property, though.
That's
Yes.
cool.
I've had a
I
hard time finding any, though.
Interesting. So then
Yeah.
what other breeds of pig do homesteaders like use in your area then?
Potbelly pigs is what I keep coming up with, but
Okay. They just
yeah.
stay outside. They never make it in the
They
house.
do. I know, and I'm like, "No, we've done the potbelly pigs, and ours was a giant toddler." We ended up having to put locks on all, like, toddler locks on our cupboards, and because he got into stuff. I came into the dining room. He had a bed in the dining room, and one morning it was about 5 in the morning, and I had gotten up to check on him because I kept hearing noises, and the lights were off except for you could see the bathroom light kind of. And he had gotten into the cabinets, and I was looking all over the floor, and I'm like, "What am I looking at?" And I had to turn on the light, and he had gotten into like the bulk pack of brown sugar, and he ate a
Oh
bunch of
my
it, but it was
god.
also just matted everywhere.
Yuck.
So potbelly pigs don't make good house pets. I think you'd have
No.
better luck with the rooster. So
The house rooster.
a house rooster. I keep seeing people with pet roosters in the house. I'm like, why?
That'd be
So
awful.
I
Do
do
you
have
just
closet chicks right now, though, so I
Oh,
can't.
okay. So, I was gonna ask you about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
I was just gonna make a quick comment about the coonies. I
Mhm.
talked to a hog farmer. Well, he does a bunch of other stuff, but I think his main business is hogs. And he's like, I think coonies are a pyramid scheme. Don't get them. Because anybody that wants to say you like tells you to get coonies, they own coonies, just to sell you, or is what his, which
Yeah.
I thought was just a funny take on it. So
Well, um, like I said, we moved a lot, and we moved here from Utah, and we used to go visit this place along this walking trail that had coonies, and they had some little pygmy goats and then some other goats. And there was a gumball dispenser that you could put a quarter in and get food to feed them. And I went there all the time just to feed them. And I was like, I want cooney pigs just like these little pigs. So that's why I'm like, no, it's got to be cooney pigs.
fair enough.
Yeah.
That's just fine.
Yeah.
Um, so what other animals do you have on your property currently?
So currently, we have gotten rid of our ducks. We sold them. So currently, the only things we have are chickens and chicks, well, and some roosters, and my dogs. Um,
Okay,
Thank goodness that we had kind of waited to add because of my broken foot. So, um, when we first moved here, we were like, I was like, okay, I got to go get the goats. I got to go get, a couple sheep. I need the pigs, whatever. But things cost money. And my focus at first, even though I was like, I got to have all these things, was getting in my gardens and getting in some chickens and getting a flock established. And so, and we've had kind of a lot of health crises this year alone between this with my foot, and I have a son who's been sick off and on. And so, and I was traveling a lot back and forth to Virginia and here because I do have a couple adult kids that live in Virginia, and I would go there to
mm,
help them. And so we were like, okay, some of these animals we just have to wait on until things calm down. And
sure.
then I had recently just started talking again, like, okay, now we need to start thinking of putting up the fences. We have animal pens, but we just got to put up the fences. And then, of course, I broke my foot. So, and this endeavor is more mine than it is my family's or my husband's. This is my thing. So, while my husband is supportive to build and stuff, I try not to like put too much out there because even now he's whatever chores I have a couple adult kids that do live here still. And whatever chores they can't do, he's got to do. Plus, he's working. Plus, he's finishing up his master's program. So he's
Sure.
really busy. And I'm like, okay, well, once again, we have to wait.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
always a time management thing for sure.
Yeah,
So what what kind of things do you have going on your property, like methods, practices, techniques? Like I saw in one of your videos, you have a herb spiral.
I do. So, um, one of my interests since we moved here has become herbs. And it started off with that spiral. And I was, just researching like what herbs are helpful for chickens, what herbs are helpful for like anxiety, and I've learned a lot of stuff. I've started building up a collection of books and I've started making like my own herbal teas and um my along with all the like medicine that you get for chickens at like Tractor Supply and feed stores, I have learned how to use my herbs for my chickens. So I actually have a chicken herb garden that's just
I
for
saw
them.
that.
Yeah, um, because I am trying. There's a place for modern medicine, obviously, including for chickens and other livestock. But I'm really trying to keep my animals, and this is any future animals. This is also my dogs. This is all of them through more natural things such as herbs. So I do have my herb spiral. That is actually part of the home herb garden. um, Last year I spilled a pack of basil in the garden. I I got so much basil. I was like, I don't know what to do with this all, but that spurred me even more. Like, oh my gosh, it grew so well. And in the past, I haven't had a lot of luck with most herbs in places that we've lived, but here, like everything I planted is growing great. So,
Nice.
yeah,
That's good.
herbs is one of them. And honestly, like the only thing that I've really needed to get them to grow is to make sure they have a deep enough bed to grow in, a little bit of sun. It doesn't even seem to take a lot of sun, and I'm constantly adding, my chicken compost to them. So that's the method I use to grow my herbs. I also for like our garden we tried tilling. We went out, we bought a tiller. Tillers are expensive. If I'm sure every gardener, every farmer knows this, but we're
Yeah.
like, we're gonna till up everything, and then we did, and everything started to grow right back. And I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work long term. And so we started doing the no-till method, and that it works. You do have to like still keep up because I don't know if it's just Georgia or if this is everywhere, but Georgia weeds will go through they'll go through anything. I'm like there are layers of cardboard down and mulch and they're still coming up. So that's kind of a fight we've
Dang.
been having is weeds, but I still like the no-till method. Plus I've started doing more container gardening like out on my patio, just finding old wood and stuff on the property. When we moved to this property, there was so much material. Like we haven't had to buy any kind of fencing material for like our chicken yard and coop and stuff. We will have to buy fencing for when we add more animals. And we did buy some electric fencing for the garden and the orchard because of deer. Deer are just everywhere here. So
Are you able to hunt them right on your property?
I don't know. Maybe.
Never
I
tried.
mean, there's enough, and I'm always hearing gunshots, so I'm sure people do. Um, but we just haven't done it. Yeah.
Um, so what what things have you tried that have worked well so far in all your homestead happenings, I guess.
Okay. So, and I talked about my chickens and herbs. So when we first
Right.
moved to this property, there was a pre-existing chicken coop and chicken yard. And it was at the very like bottom, I'm going to call it the bottom of the property because this is where all the water runs down to. It's the very back of the property. We're kind of on a hill, just slightly. Like the house sits at the top, and then the driveway, curves down. The driveway is huge. It takes up a lot of space, actually. And then, we've got the surrounding property. And so I was like, oh, great. I did not know that all the water ran down there. And I was like, well, this is already here, so we're going to use this. I have no idea why that was put there because my chickens, they were just dying left and right of disease from this runoff water, and it would stand, it would never drain, it would never dry. It was just muddy and disgusting. And I finally was like, we need to move the chickens or we're not going to have any left. They're just
Hmm.
dying. And during that time, I'm like, oh, it must be parasites. Because it took me a little bit to be like, this is just the mud and the standing water and the bacteria that's building up. Because it is also very humid here and disgustingly hot. And um, so I'm like, I need to treat them for parasites. I need to treat them. They're like coughing. They always seem to have colds. So I'm like
Weird.
researching and doing everything to keep these birds alive. And so finally we had like when we moved here, there was a pole barn just sitting, and we don't really have anything to put in the pole barn at this point. And it's like up on a hill kind of. It's like off in the distance, but from our driveway and up. So I was like, we need to move the chickens either, up that this way or that way. And my husband said, well, why don't we use the pole barn and we'll just turn the whole thing into a chicken yard. We'll fence the whole thing off. We'll build a coop in it. And I was like, okay. And so that helped some, but because Georgia holds every chicken disease that has ever existed, things I never even knew were a thing, I was still struggling and like keeping them alive. And so I built up my, chicken pharmacy. But I started researching herbs for them, and they get a lot of herbs every single day. They get a lot of, I use a lot of apple cider vinegar, a lot of garlic. Garlic is something that I'm growing a ton of because I go through so much of it. And
Hmm.
that, the just the herbs and just keeping up on their health has been very successful, like just in that way. Um, Animal health is really important because they provide food for us, and without them, like that's one less food source. And so I do think it's
Right.
important that we are good stewards and do our best to take care of them. And my chickens now, they're healthy, and we have the least amount of bumblefoot. I mean, we were seeing bumblefoot weekly before all that. And so yeah, it's a method that I use. Um, you'll see people that are like, oh yeah, sometimes I give my birds oregano oil or whatever, and that's great. But that is also something I use almost daily is oregano oil. Plus they're eating as many fresh herbs as I have growing. And the good thing about Georgia, as humid as it is um, and stuff, herbs grow all year long here. And they like not all herbs grow, but you always have something that's growing. And anything that's not growing, you can, just go without that or do like
Right.
a dried version. So that's another thing is I plan on drying just tons and tons and tons of herbs. I would like to do, like a blend, just my little chicken herb blend to mix in with their food.
It's so interesting to me how hard some people have to work just to keep their chickens alive. I
I know.
do almost nothing. Like
Yeah.
the the weirdest thing I think I've come across is that one of my chickens had the hiccups. Like I it I don't know what else it was. It wasn't like a cough, but it was just like bleh, bleh. Just like every
Well,
like 5 seconds or whatever. It was super weird.
yeah.
Uh I think I got some video that I put up on Instagram, but Like, so it's wild to me, like, oh yeah, like we had mites, we had this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I used to do, diatomaceous earth, but then they just started digging holes in the yard and then dusting themselves in that. And so I'm just like,
Mhm.
why bother? They got clean
Yeah.
water and clean food,
That's
clean
good.
nesting
Yeah.
boxes.
Yeah, and I use diatomaceous earth regularly, and they do make their own dust baths. But yeah, my first chicken flock was in Washington. I didn't do anything to keep those birds alive, and they just stayed alive. And same, we moved to Virginia, and I had a huge flock there. I didn't do anything. That's
Hmm.
that's why I was like, what's Merrick's disease? Like, what is sauerkraut? What are all these things that I have never heard of because I'd never dealt with them? Not, that was all. I just never dealt with them.
Right.
So, but Georgia is a very different place, and I am really trying to learn more so that when I do have livestock outside of my chickens, that I'm prepared for them as well, so that
You're
I'm
like the
not like
chicken doctor now. Like
Yeah, I
anything,
have
I've
friends
seen
that
it
call
all.
me. They're like, "Hey, what do I do for this?" I'm like, "Okay, this is what you do." Got bumblefoot. I even know how to surgically remove that if needed.
Hmm. Wow.
So, yeah.
I think the worst I had, one of the chicken's like toenails got ripped off.
Ooh, ouch.
And I don't know. I don't even know what happened. All of a sudden, I just saw like a little bit of blood here, a little bit of blood there in the chicken coop, and I'm like, "Who's bleeding?" And so I
Yeah,
finally found the one, and like the other chickens were like pecking at it because it's bright red, and
chickens are so bad at
I
that.
just yeah, they're the worst, and just kind of kept an eye on it because I wasn't gonna like amputate the toe or whatever if it really got bad.
Yeah,
I was just gonna get rid of the bird.
yeah. Sometimes
But
that's just the best thing, unfortunately.
yeah. On that same vein, are you guys worried about bird flu where you're at right now? What's it like?
So, I mean, cases are really low in Georgia, and I'm always a little concerned. My birds aren't free range. They are fenced in, and while at the top of their pole barn, birds can fly in, like little birds
Okay.
will get in there. So far we haven't had any issues, knock on wood. I'm hoping that we continue to not have issues. Um, yeah, because I'd hate to have to like cull my entire flock that's, established and healthy and yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
With all the herbs that you're giving them, they could probably live through anything.
I know. Well, and I hear that the avian flu is almost 100% fatality, like even if you didn't put your flock down. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it's probably better that if they did get them to put them down so they're not suffering. Not that it would, I mean, I hear that it can kill in hours. So,
Wow. That's
yeah.
really fast. I see. I haven't really looked into it too much.
Yeah, I
Just
I
heard
read
about it.
about it, and anytime I find or hear about a new thing like that could affect my chickens, I'm like, okay, now I need to research so that I know what to do. And I mean, honestly, at that point, the best thing for me to do would to actually be to call the local um oh, the local office that deals with that and let them deal with it. So,
Right. We'll just
yeah.
have to set up a hotline
I know.
directly to your phone number, 1-800 chick doctor or something. I don't know.
And I'm not a vet, and I try and like put a disclaimer. I am not a vet at all. Mine's just personal experience and what has worked
Sure.
for me. So, and honestly, I would go to vet school, but I feel like I'm kind of too old for it, and I don't really have time for it.
Let me
So,
teach you something.
yeah.
Um, so you kind of went to what started as a bad situation, something that didn't work, and then you made it into something that did work. Let's go back into the what didn't work. Why did you get rid of your ducks?
My ducks didn't work. I've had ducks in the past. I love ducks. But in the past we just had a different setup. They were more free range, they had more open space, and because we cannot have them free range here, we've got too many hawks, too many coyotes. I don't have, a livestock guardian dog. I have a farm dog that would be too scared to fight off anything and lives in the house. And so they were just the pole barn is a very large space, but they were so messy and they just weren't working in there. Like,
Hmm.
and you could tell they were just not happy. I That's something that's important to me, is that the animals that I raise, that they're happy, that they live as happy of a life as a bird or any farm animal can have. And so for us during this time, they just weren't working for us. And they were also large. I accidentally got some giant uh, Pekin ducks. I prefer to do like the khaki Campbells. They're a
Mm-hmm.
smaller bird and a little bit easier. So I when I bought my chicks, and I swore up and down this year I wasn't going to add chicks because, we do have plenty of birds, but chicken math, right? You're like,
Chicken
well,
math.
I'm going to go get they got in some silver laced Polish chicks, and I've wanted that breed for a long time, and I was like, I'm just going to get a couple. And now I have 9 chicks, and they had baby ducks, and I was like, "Oh, no, you're not getting them." I really had to fight that one off. Um,
So you bought an
so
extra couple chicks to compensate for the lack of
to
ducks.
compensate for the lack of ducks, but eventually we will probably do ducks again. We like their eggs. Um, they're funny to watch. One of the reasons that I like to have birds is because they're hilarious. They do funny things,
Yeah.
and along with providing food for my family, of course. Um, one of my favorite YouTubers actually is Goldshaw Farmer, because wait, Goldshaw Farm. Anyway, he has a lot of birds, and I love to watch all his birds and all his ducks, and he's got like runner breeds, and I'm like, that's a breed that might work here. But so my particular ducks, it may have just been that particular breed of duck just wasn't going to work. They're too big,
Sure.
and I needed something smaller. But so for now, no ducks.
I wonder if you did a little bit of earthworks in the lower part of the property to get that spot to drain a little bit better. Like maybe like, so the water's like cycling, like moving, and it's not so stagnant. I wonder if you could, but then you'd still have your predator problem down there.
We still have the predator problem. I think so. When we start adding other things, we will come up with something, whether I get, a donkey or a llama or a LGD. I will do something to help. And at that point I should be able to free range at least to some extent.
Sure.
Um, which I would love. I was talking to my neighbors, and they said the people that lived here before, they free ranged for a while, and then all of a sudden they, built that coop. And I was like, yeah, because there's 100 hawks to every tree around here. So there's a ton of hawks. Plus we have vultures here, which I did not know, and they're everywhere. I had an armadillo in my yard, and I don't know if it just died or if they killed it, but I had a whole swarm of vultures in my yard for a day and a half. And you know,
Wow.
from a distance they kind of look like black chickens. And I a lot of times I'll see them, I'll be like, "Ooh, a chicken." I'm like, "No, no, those aren't chickens. Don't stop and get them." I don't think it would go well. So,
Probably not.
yeah,
Plus, plus vultures are pretty ugly.
they are ugly.
Yeah, pretty ugly.
They're everywhere here, though. There's some weird animals here. That's also been something new. I didn't even know armadillos were outside of Texas. I Just because
Yeah.
I'm not from the South. I had never been to the South until we came to close on our house. My husband flew out here to pick our
Oh.
house. So, yeah.
What would you say? Like, what's been the biggest challenge in homesteading that you faced? What's been? What's been the biggest
You
challenge?
know, up until yesterday, the biggest challenges have been, when you're trying to grow your own food, it feels like it's like 3 steps forward and 2.5 steps back because such as your animals dying, or last year I planted tons of cabbage and tons of beans. My goal was to provide, like, to dry out my beans and to provide all my beans for my family for the year. And the deer got them the day before harvest, or I should say the night before harvest. The deer ate every single one of them. They annihilated all of them, and moths got to my cabbages, and they were so beautiful. All they needed was maybe another week and a half to 2 weeks, and I would have, been able to harvest
Man.
them. And so that's been one of the biggest challenges, is just fighting off, whether it's disease with animals or bugs or deer that just, it's why we now have the electric fence. They started like eating our orchard trees, which had just been planted the summer before, or in, because this will, let's see, when we hit August, that's our second year here, but our third August here.
Sure.
And we got those trees like right when we moved here. It was the first thing we did. Everybody says, like, plant your orchard the second you can because it takes so long to grow. So we
Right.
did that, and yeah, the deer just started eating them, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I one day I just cried. I was like, "I'm trying so hard and we are almost where we need to be, and then we're not. And then we have to start all over again." I did end up getting a second little bit smaller, like, bean harvest. So I didn't get
Mm-hmm.
to provide all, everything for my family, but I did get to provide some, and I was able to do some like seed saving or bean saving for this year, which is helpful. But yeah, just trying to, like, be able to eat your food and not have it be eaten or die or whatever. That's been my struggle.
Do you want to? I know it's only been a day, but do you want to talk about the struggle you've had with your broken foot?
So yeah, this is the worst season to break any body part. Although if I was going to get to choose, I would have picked an arm because I need my
Really?
legs. Yeah. You can't you can still walk around with your arm broke. But yeah, so because this is like the start of the season, and I I do the planting, and I do the majority of the weeding. My husband's like the builder, and he does that stuff. I care for the animals. Um, I water everything. I keep things alive, and uh, I'm stuck on the couch at least for 2 weeks until I get my cast off and get my boot on, and then I can scooter around a little bit. But um, yeah, just the second it happened, I was like, no, this is the worst time. This can't. I'm not accepting this. Like, I did not want to accept that I had just broke my foot, but my foot popped. It was pretty gross. So
First thought, this hurts. Second thought, I have so much gardening to do.
I know that was seriously how it worked. And I, you know, I I was on Facebook and I just was like, "Hey, friends and family, I need a chicken wrangler for the year or for the season, and a good gardener. I need somebody to come out." So, but everybody works and has their thing going on, and um but I have, like I said, a couple adult kids here, and my husband here, and they're pretty helpful. Like, when I need help, um they'll they'll help. They might complain a little bit, but they'll still do it. But it is frustrating because I hate adding all these chores onto somebody else, because it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Right. It's kind of
Yeah.
like you said, like it's your thing, it's your labor of love. Like it's hard
Mhm.
work, but it's rewarding and it's just the thing that you like to do. It's not
It
necessarily
is.
their thing.
It's not their thing. And um especially my adult kids, like, they're like, "No, mom," because I didn't start this when they were tiny. I started this when they were like, I think the youngest kids were in the 3rd grade, and then the other 4 were in middle school and high school. So
Mm.
to them, they're just like, why do you want to work so much? They always ask me, why do you add work to yourself? I'm like, because this is important to me. And this is like, I have two little granddaughters now. One is 6 months and the other one is 2. And my 2-year-old granddaughter goes out and she waters the garden with me. And I let her pick, things like strawberries. I've got strawberries coming in. I have a few beans coming in and stuff. And I take her out there because I want it to be so natural to her and just
Mm-hmm.
something she's always been around, because it's a legacy that I want to leave behind. Even if we move from this property, my grandchildren will have the skills to do the same thing. And that's what I want, and so that is really important to me.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
We had gone huckleberry picking last year. Well, so my son will be 2 here shortly, and the first year he was born, he couldn't have been more than like 6 weeks old. I had him in front carrier. We were
Yep.
picking huckleberries out in the woods. Last year, same front carrier, just facing out, and I'm picking huckleberries and putting them in a container, and he's eating them like as fast as I can pick them. And so, I wasn't even mad. He's got like purple stains on his
Yeah.
fingertips. It's pretty cute, and we'll go out again this year, and hopefully he can like pick some of his own. And last year I was turning up some of the leaves for him to find and him to, work on that dexterity and pick
Yeah.
some of the berries and like smash, smash, smash.
Smash them. Yeah, and it's such an important time. You don't realize they're little and you're like, well, they can't do much. But this is when they learn. So, something I did do as a very small child is my grandmother and my dad would forage mushrooms. And I remember being, 5 and 6 and knowing my mushrooms. I have no clue now because it's not a skill I continued. I
Sure.
forgot that we did that. Matter of fact, I forgot that we did that until it was about a year ago. I remember going out with them, but then I had this very vivid memory of me like bringing these mushrooms to my grandma and my grandma saying, "Good job, you got the right ones." And yeah, like it's such an important age right now. Like I'm teaching my 2-year-old granddaughter her herbs. She doesn't know that's what I'm doing because I'll be like, smell this. This is mint. Smell this. This is thyme. Smell like everything. She loves smelling everything. And as she's doing something she loves, I am teaching her. And so yeah, that's really important that you're teaching your son now while he's little.
See, I think we don't give kids enough credit that they pick up on way more than we think
Oh
they
yeah,
do.
they do.
Like my mother-in-law was in town not too long ago, and I think for Valentine's Day we got her like a bouquet, um, just saying that it was from my son. And so she would like be playing with him during the day, and he's like, flowers, flowers, and she's like, yeah, this one's a mom, this one's a blah blah blah, and I don't know them all, but after a week he was like, this one's blah, like, he was able to name all those different flowers, and I'm like, I only knew
Yeah.
like 2 of them, and he could name all 6 or whatever it was. And
Yeah.
um learning how to crack an egg for breakfast in the morning, like
Uh-huh.
that's important dexterity, and he wants to do it, even though
Yeah.
he there was like he dropped an egg on the floor one time, and I didn't even make a big deal about it. He's just like, now he just points at that spot on the floor and goes, egg,
Yeah.
egg.
It was there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like to take my granddaughter. We found this wagon, big solid plastic wagon at the thrift store, the local thrift store. She loves that thing, so I put her in it. I take her down to the chickens. We go get eggs. She loves to like hold the eggs, and I
Hmm.
keep a lot of boiled eggs in the house though, because then when we bring them in the house, I switch them out because she will throw them. But yeah, she loves the eggs. So, and I've been teaching her slowly how to make bread, and um, because we eat a lot of sourdough, so I will just put a little bit of flour in her bowl with some sourdough starch, just so she can stir it while I'm doing my thing. And you know, I did not do this with my children when they were little, and it makes me so sad. Like now, when because I'm doing this with my granddaughter, and soon as my other granddaughter is older, she's only 6 months old, we'll do the same thing. And I'm like, man, I should have started this when they were little. I it didn't cross my mind at the time, but
Sure. Yeah.
at least somebody will get it. Somebody will have these skills.
So would you say that teaching your granddaughter these skills is the best part of homesteading, or what would you say the best part of homesteading is?
Um, that's a good question. Honestly, I like so much about it. I really do. I love one of the things I love is to anyone who loves gardening would probably say the same thing. Taking that little tiny seed, putting it in the ground, you really don't do much. You water it, you make sure it's got some good soil, and then it grows into this like huge amount of food. I mean, because if you think of like the size of a cabbage seed, and then here's this huge cabbage, and a cabbage can feed, you can make sauerkraut or you can do whatever, and that's going to feed your family for a while. And to see that these little tiny seeds miraculously grow into something that you can feed your family is amazing to me, and it's something I love. But I actually think you're right in that my favorite thing is teaching my granddaughters because, well, granddaughter currently, because I see that she likes it. She wants to go out. She stands at her door. So we have an apartment um, like downstairs. It was the basement, and that's where her and her family live. And she stands at the door, and her mom will tell me, and she says, "See Mimi, see Mimi, see Mimi." She wants to come up, and when she comes up, she comes and pulls on my shirt because she wants to go outside. She wants to pick the strawberries. She wants to go in the garden. She wants to water. Like that's what she wants is to be out there. She wants me to take her to the chickens. She says, "See chickens." Well, she calls them kitchens. See kitchens.
That's
And
funny.
yeah, and we go down there. She's not scared at all. She loves them. She likes to go in there. She likes to like try and give them food. And her mom is the opposite. She's very scared of all animals, including chickens, which is weird because she's never been attacked by an animal. But um, yeah, it brings a lot of joy to be able to see that um, that I get to teach her things
Hmm.
as I learn because I learn something new all the time. Like I'll read something or watch something. I'm like, are you serious? That's probably why my blueberries didn't grow or stuff like that. So I'm learning with her. And yeah, having a homestead, your homestead is a classroom, and you just learn so much and your kids learn so much. And yeah, it's it's cool to do that together.
Definitely. Um, so how does that tie in with quality of life on a functional homestead?
I was pondering that question. um, and while it is super enjoyable, um, you still need breaks. So something because you see it all the time, burnout is real on a homestead, and it is. It doesn't matter how much you love something. If you I don't know, like last summer is prime example. I don't know how many times I was ready to throw in the towel because we were fighting so many different things, uh, trying to grow our own food, and it seemed like we'd finally be almost where we were getting somewhere, and then three chicken died, and then you know our crops were being wiped out, and it's so frustrating. And so during those times, in order to keep going, you do need to take a break, or you need to get away, or um yeah, in order to uh continue to do it and love it, because you can keep doing something and keep doing something and keep doing something and not love it and get sick of it and hate it and do it because you feel like you're supposed to do it or
Sure.
you have to do it. And there's nothing else but, taking those breaks and taking a step back. And, even if the reason you're taking a step back is because you need to do some more research, or you just you don't want to throw in the towel. Um, those breaks are important, and a break can be whatever you need it to be. We don't really go on vacation. We don't we don't have time really, but
Sure.
yeah, I like I had said, like this year I said I wasn't going to add chicks to our flock, because I really felt like, no, we spent so long getting this flock healthy that I was worried that, it's going to bring in, because you never know, birds you bring in, you never know if they've got something. And it is good that I keep mine in the house and then in the garage for the first, several weeks. But
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like you definitely have to have breaks and take a step back. And something I was thinking about was, it's really hard for us to admit a weakness. Like, I'm
Yeah.
stubborn and I'm like, no, if that didn't work, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. Sometimes I'm spending hundreds of dollars doing this and this and this and not getting anywhere. And I think that in order to not do that, to not get stubborn, um, to be willing to say, okay, this is kind of my limit right now. Like, it's okay to have limits, and I just need to stop and I need to focus on something else, or I need to not do that this year and not add this to my plate. And recognize when your plate is really full. But I don't know if that answered the question. That was a lot of like
Well,
just
so then, since you didn't answer the question, so what do you do to take breaks then, and to like take a step back and not get burned out?
yeah, so I am really bad at not taking breaks, but usually I will just go do something for the weekend. And um I sometimes I'll just say, you know what, whatever. My husband can feed the birds or water the garden or not. And no, he always feeds the animals. But yeah, I will go to Virginia at times to see my kids. That's something I do. We can't do that together because someone always needs to be here.
Right.
But or currently we can't. I don't have a farm sitter. Like I said, I do have adult kids, and if I was going to leave for a day or two, they'd be okay, but they're not okay on their own for a week. Um, but yeah, so I do that. My husband, he had some family in town, and he went and did some stuff with them for a few days. Um, but yeah, sometimes just taking a break is just, you know, not leaving the house and binge watching something. Outlander is available, so that's something
You and
I will
my
be
wife
binge
could
watching.
talk about that. I will not be watching Outlander.
I love Outlander. Yeah, you have to pay for stars to get it, and so I was like, "That's it. It's all available now. I'm watching it."
I thought it was on Netflix. That's how she's been watching
Mhm.
it.
Well, some of the first seasons are like the first 4 or 5, but the new season is only available on Stars.
Oh,
So,
okay. I
mhm.
gotcha. Hmm.
But
That's how they
yeah,
get you.
so breaks can be whatever you need them to be, and and it is really hard to take a break. It is hard to take a break when or if you don't have someone to take your place on your property. That's, I see a lot of people on Instagram going on vacation, and I'm like, how? Like, how do they do that?
Right.
But
I interviewed a couple that runs a pretty decent vegetable operation up in Wisconsin, and every year they take a 1 month trip to Mexico to like just
yeah,
kind of, I guess, kind of, wind down after a busy season, and
yeah, it
then
makes
kind of
sense.
get their energy back for the upcoming season. So, you
Yeah.
know, that's crazy to me that they're able to pull that off, but good for them. That's really cool.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, it makes sense. Vegetables are pretty seasonal in Wisconsin, so it's not like you
Short
know,
season there in Wisconsin.
yeah,
Yeah.
they use like high tunnels and
Oh, okay.
stuff like that. So,
That's good. Yeah.
Um, so should everyone be growing at least some of their own food?
Yes. If they are capable. Like I know there's, people out there that they're just not able to do it for whether it's like health or age or whatever. But if you're capable, yeah, I do believe so. Um, I just read something. I can't remember if I was on Facebook or Instagram that was like, if everybody grew one crop, we could all share our crops and food would be, free. And to an
That would be
extent,
something.
that's true because if you live in a close community and everybody's growing something, and you guys are just trading with each other, then yeah, that would make such a huge difference in just our food system. And this year, I was really paying attention to how many recalls there were on food. It was disgusting. Like that, you're supposed to feel some comfort when you go to the grocery store and you're buying food. You're like, okay, the USDA approved this or check this. And then you're like, oh no, my husband got food poisoning last August from onions. There was that big onion recall and he got sick from it. And he was severely sick. And
It's
I
terrible.
it is terrible. And that is just one of the many reasons that if you're capable of growing anything, even if you have a windowsill, if you have a porch, I have a daughter and her husband that live in Virginia. They have a balcony. And I'm like, you guys, you need to grow stuff. And I took a bunch of, just stuff, seeds and grow bags and stuff to them so that they could have a little garden, which they are interested in. And actually, my daughter's husband was like, we're doing it and planted a bunch of stuff. And
Good for
and
him. That's awesome.
I think it's so awesome, and I think that everybody should do something. Even if all you can grow is your herbs, grow your
Sure.
herbs. Like everybody can do something. And, and then what am I trying to say? If you can do farmers markets and if you have friends and family that grow, like help them in their garden and share or, and get paid through food, help them with their animals, something. My whole family, when we lived in Washington, would help this lady on a horse farm so that we could have manure for our garden. And I just think, you know, there's always some way to get fresh food and yeah, grow what you can if you can.
Yeah. My thing is like if you just don't want to garden, like you just don't want to put in the time,
Mhm.
that's fine. I can understand that. But go connect with some neighbors or somebody you like, go find somebody that
Yeah.
does have a garden and will give you extra zucchini. It's just like isn't there like a joke like give your neighbor a
Yeah.
zucchini day or something like that, like just like
Yeah.
and, and so like give a crap about your food, because if you can get food poisoning off of onions, like
Yeah.
it always seems to be salad. It's like
Uh-huh. We don't buy
it's
salad
just
bags anymore. We're like, "No. We don't need
no,
that. We
it's
don't need
always
to."
salad.
It is always my husband, he's like, "Never buy romaine lettuce. Don't buy it." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not buying it because it's dangerous."
Yeah.
You don't know anymore. And
Yeah, triple washed my butt, like
yeah, it's true. I feel so much
yeah,
safer with the things I grow than, wasting money on grocery store produce.
right. So, what would you tell people that wanna get started?
It's probably just the normal answer you get. It's so cliche. Just start. Just, go. Now, I just said it's not very safe to buy grocery store produce, but go to Walmart or whatever and buy a basil plant. Start with that. Just start. Like, I spent, I don't know how many years researching chickens before I did it. And had I just done it, like, yeah, I probably would have had a lot more like trial and error to like get through. But I wish I had done it earlier
Sure.
because it's been a blessing for our family that A, that I have the skill that I have to take care of them, and B, that they give our family food. And as I always remind my husband, it's not about the money that I put into the chickens. I'm not like trying to figure out, okay, well, it costs this much to feed them and they give us this many eggs. That's not real. I don't think about it that way. Like, I know where my eggs come from. I know what my chickens eat. I know they're healthy. I know they're happy. They're not shoved into cages or anything like that. And
Hmm.
so just start somewhere and don't be scared to fail, because what do they say? The best farmers have failed over and over again, and that's true. I have failed a ton, but the first time that you get your first egg or milk your first cow or pick your first tomato, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I did this and I can do this more and I can get more and I can expand. And even if you have a very small space, we lived in Utah, and I had it was like 0.17 acre, and I
It's like a
it
joke.
came I know it came with a garden bed, and I took that garden bed that first year and I planted it, and I got quite a bit of stuff. And then over the winter, I added a bunch more garden beds. We planted 2 apple trees. I found these apple trees at uh, Walmart on clearance for like $2 each. So I bought 2 apple trees. I bought a peach tree. Like,
Should have bought 100.
I know, I utilized that space. We had the next summer we didn't buy any of our lettuce or anything from the store. I was harvesting lettuce. I was harvesting spinach. We had yellow squash coming out our ears. We started getting zucchini in. I was growing a few of my herbs, the ones that would grow. We had tons of strawberries coming in and carrots and like everything, and it was just a small space. And if I can do it, and I have spent 12 years learning how to not kill my plants, anybody can do it.
That's very well said. And
Yeah.
I do want to say, like, 0.17 acres doesn't sound like a lot because a lot of people are like, oh, if I had 5 acres, 10 acres, 20 acres, 40 acres, like it's never enough. But like,
Yeah.
look at how productive you were on that
Yeah, less than a
0.17
fifth
acres
of an
because
acre.
everything's so close. Like,
Yep.
so you don't, that's kind of like the thing with people with larger properties, even half acre plus,
Yeah.
everything can get so spread out. And so you kind of don't have that, in permaculture, like the zone 1 and zone 2. So like,
Yep.
um, you're seeing everything every day, you're touching everything every day, you're walking that path, it
Yeah.
gets the attention that it needs, and so it's, um, yeah, there's nothing wrong with small acreage at
No,
all.
and that was actually one of the things that got that house sold when we sold it. Was I had this beautiful garden that I had,
Nice.
babied and taken good care of, and it was like the middle of summer and all the things are coming in, and the wife was like, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful." Like, and and what's interesting is Utah's really expensive, and we sold our house there for the same price we bought this house here with property. Um and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." Like, how much you can get in a state that's cheaper. But yeah, and out here I'm like, I want a garden here and I want one there, and so that's why I have all these spaces, because I can't make up my mind where I want to grow things, and
That's
I can
funny.
grow it wherever I want to grow it. So
There you go. Now you have too many options.
I have too many options. Yes.
Um, so wrapping up here, where can people find more about what you're doing?
So they can find me on Instagram. I'm at Honey Grove Homestead, and my YouTube channel also Honey Grove Homestead. So, and
Perfect.
yeah, um I want to say I definitely share more on Instagram, obviously. But I do have several videos up on YouTube, on my YouTube channel.
Great. I will have a link to both of those in the show notes. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
this evening. I know it's late, even if you are a night owl, but I
Yeah.
appreciate you being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Fantastic interview with Sophia. Lots of great information from the chicken doctor and her pharmacy. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like, subscribe, and most importantly, share this video. Check out our website, farmhoplife.com. On the website, you can see a curated list of social media posts all in one place under the social tab. Sign up for our email list there to be notified when new videos, interviews, and podcasts are available. You can email me anytime, matt@farmhoplife.com. I'm always looking for new people to interview. If you'd like to come on to talk about homesteading, farming, food security, homeschooling, just go to farmhoplife.com/guest. Thanks. Go feed yourself.